Hey guys, tonight we're diving deep into the dry, cracked earth of ancient Egypt. Not to chase treasure or decode hieroglyphs, but to figure out how on earth anyone kept their teeth clean in that sun-baked world of sand grit and honey cakes. You're lying on a woven reed mat inside a small mud brick house, just as the pink light of dawn seeps in through the narrow doorway. Your back is sore, your mouth is dry, and your first coherent thought is that your teeth feel like they've been stuffed with gravel and sour straw. That's not an exaggeration. You can practically taste yesterday's meal still clinging to your molars. Some barley gruel, a bit of dried fish, and whatever, bits of the desert hitched a ride in with the wind. There's a sour fuzz coating the roof of your mouth, and every time your tongue grazes your front teeth, it feels like a dusty limestone wall. You sit up with a groan. Welcome to another day as an average Egyptian around 1500 BCE, and yes, your breath could probably peel paint. You shuffle to the edge of the room where your morning tools are waiting. No toothbrush, no Colgate, not even a strip of minty freshness in sight. Instead, there's a fibrous twig about the length of your hand, its end lightly frayed like a broom. This, from routine, is your chew stick. It's made from a tree branch, possibly Salvadora or acacia, chosen not for flavor but because it doesn't splinter. You jam one end into your mouth and start working it back and forth, your jaw creaking like a camel cart. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see how far this sleepy caravan travels. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You chew, you gnaw, you grind. It's all very primitive, very gritty, and surprisingly kind of effective. As your saliva mixes with the stick's woody fibers, the texture starts to soften into a makeshift brush. It tastes a little bitter but not unbearable. The frayed ends start to flick away the crusty buildup from your back teeth. Of course, the chew stick alone won't cut it. You lean over a shallow pottery bowl, take a pinch of powder from a small reed box, and dab it onto the stick. This isn't toothpaste as you know it. It's a crumbly mix of ground pumice, powdered ox hooves, and burnt eggshell. That's right, burnt eggshell. Supposedly it polishes your enamel, though the current. You might argue it feels more like you're sandpapering your gums into submission. Historians still argue whether this tooth powder was reserved for ritual or everyday use. But here and now, you've got no choice. Your gums bleed a little. Not because you're doing anything wrong, just because they're inflamed from years of eating gritty bread, drinking brackish water, and never once flossing. And yet you keep scrubbing. One of the cats slinks past you, tail twitching, and you briefly wonder if her breath is better than yours. The Egyptians love their cats, revered, even sacred, but if they could talk, they'd probably have opinions about your morning routine. You scrape the inside of your cheeks. You try to reach your molars. You fail, but you're committed, because your day hasn't even started and already you can feel your mouth coming back to life. You give a final chew, spit what you can into the sand outside, and rinse from a shallow bowl of yesterday's Nile water. It's warm, slightly cloudy, and probably home to a thriving ecosystem. You pretend not to notice. Your breath still isn't great, and your gums still throb, but you did what you could. Hygiene in ancient Egypt is a battlefield, and your weapon is a twig. Strangely, the act of brushing leaves you feeling awake, present. Your mouth tingles, not in a minty fresh way, but in a well, at least I tried kind of way. You poke your tongue at a molar that's been bothering you. There's a bit of looseness there, a wobble, a throb when you bite down. You ignore it. That's future you's problem. As you step into the morning sun, golden light washing over your bare shoulders, you inhale deeply and instantly regret it. Sand swirls in the breeze. You're going to need that chew stick again by midday. But for now, you've survived another round with ancient dental care. Just barely. You roll your shoulders and shuffle down the packed dirt alley behind your house. Chew stick still wedged in the corner of your mouth like some stubborn twig cigar. The sun hasn't even finished rising over the horizon, but the village is already awake. Goats, bleating chickens, squabbling, old women sweeping dust off dusty steps with palm frond brooms. And all around you, people are chewing. Not food, not gum, just sticks. To the modern eye, it might look like the entire population has taken up synchronized gnawing like some slow-motion wood-eating cult. But to you, this is routine. Everyone has their own chew stick. Some people keep them tucked into their waistbands like writing reeds. Others dangle them from leather cords around their necks. The ends are chewed soft and bristled primitive toothbrushes made not of plastic and nylon, but of wood and determination. Yours is made from a Salvadora tree branch, whittled down and gently pounded to fluff up the fibers at one end. The Egyptians call this a miswak, and though the name may change over millennia, the tool is simple, brilliant, and shockingly effective at scraping grime off teeth. Not that you'd know that scientifically, of course. You just know that when you skip a morning chew, your mouth feels like it's been marinated in donkey sweat. You glance at a neighbor, a potter whose chew stick is blackened from overuse and half the size of yours. He's working it in slow circles along his lower incisors, lost in thought. A young girl skips past chew stick dangling from her lips like a flute. Hygiene here is woven into daily life, almost ritualistic. And considering there's no such thing as toothbrush holders or minty foam or a bathroom sink, the simplicity is kind of genius. One elder you pass has upgraded his chew stick game. You notice he's whittled tiny grooves into the end like mini bristles and bound it with a bit of twine. You squint. Is that a touch of ground charcoal on the tip? Fancy. Historians still argue whether chew sticks were exclusively used by elites or widespread among all classes. But as you watch a fish vendor work hers mid-shout between customers, you figure the answer's right in front of you. Everyone's got a mouth, and everyone hates when it stinks. Of course, chewing wood alone doesn't guarantee freshness. That's where the tooth powder comes in. Most mornings, you'll dip your bristles into a small clay pot of homemade paste, a dry, crumbly blend of chalk, crushed pumice, powdered ash, and salt. Sometimes it contains a bit of dried iris flower, or even frankincense if you're feeling fancy. The texture is problematic. Like licking a mortar and pestle, you have to work it in by chewing, then dragging the brush across each tooth with circular motions that would make your dentist cry for different reasons. There's no frothy foam, no timer beeping after 2 minutes. You just scrub until your jaw's tired, or until someone yells for you to get moving. This morning, a boy runs past you, cackling chew stick, wagging like a tail from his mouth. You watch him duck behind a stall and nearly collide with a camel. And that's when you notice the old man sitting on a crate in the shade. He's got no teeth. His cheeks are sunken lips curled slightly inward, and a flat grin is spread across his face like he's in on some long-running joke. You wonder if he used a chew stick once, or if it wasn't enough, or if he lived long enough that no amount of twig chewing could outlast the grinding toll of time and sand. Because that's the secret enemy here, sand. Not just the kind that blows into your bed at night or crunches in your lunch, but the invisible particles baked into everything, especially your food. You chew on barley and you're chewing on stone. You chew on dates and you're still getting a side of grit. It's no wonder the chew stick became your first line of defense. It's either this or let your teeth rot into chalky nubs. Of course, there's still some spiritual flair to the practice. Some folks believe certain wood types carry protection against evil spirits or ward off tooth decay demons. Whether that's superstition or savvy marketing from whoever sells the twigs, you'll never know. But you keep chewing just the same. You finally stop near the riverbank, pull your chew stick from your mouth, and examine it. The bristles are soft now, stained slightly gray from ash and spit. You dip it in water and shake it clean before tucking it into a fold of your linen belt. There's something satisfying about it, something ancient and meditative. The scrape, the chew, the cleanse. Not sterile, not minty, but undeniably yours. You press your tongue to your teeth. Smooth-ish. And more importantly, not fuzzy. Success, at least for the next hour. You stretch your arms as the sun creeps higher, warming the back of your neck, and head back toward your house for the next part of the ritual. Brushing is one thing, but a proper clean, that calls for something stronger. Time for the tooth powder. The real stuff. The kind that makes you wince and question your life choices. Inside your little home, tucked behind a woven screen, is a tiny ceramic jar sealed with wax and bound with twine. You pop the lid. Immediately, your nostrils are hit with a sharp, earthy scent that makes your eyes water. This isn't mint or cinnamon, it's something else, something ancient. You dip a finger inside, scoop a pinch, and let the grains fall into your palm. Today's mix is classic. Crushed pumice for abrasion, a bit of natron that naturally occurring, soda salt found in dry riverbeds, and wait for it, powdered ox hoof. Burnt ground, pungent. There's also some dried iris petals, myrrh, resin, and if you're unlucky, traces of ashes from a previous offering fire. No fluoride here, just the brutal chemistry of minerals and mystery. You mix the powder with a bit of water in a shell bowl, forming a gritty paste, the consistency of wet chalk. Some folks use beer instead, claiming it foams better. Historians still argue whether alcohol in the rinse was for disinfection or just for bravery. You pick up your chew stick and dip it carefully into the goo. The tip absorbs. The sludge darkens, then drips slightly onto your fingers. With a deep breath, and possibly a silent prayer to Thoth, the god of wisdom and possibly bad ideas, you bring it to your mouth and begin. The flavor hits you like a chariot crash. Imagine licking a sun-scorched rock, rolling it in your mouth with charred animal parts, then throwing in a bouquet that's been drying in the attic for 6 years. That's roughly the vibe. You sputter slightly but press on. The grit immediately goes to work, scraping every crevice, rubbing between your teeth and across your gums like sandpaper soaked in sandalwood. You scrub and chew, your jaw flexing as the ancient paste works its primitive magic. At one point, you think you taste iron. You don't ask why. You glance in a shard of polished copper nearby, a warped reflection, but enough to see streaks of white forming between your stained gums. Is that plaque or part of a past life? Chewing harder. Now you work the paste to your molars. They're your problem teeth. Last year, one cracked mid-meal right in the middle of a festival bread. You remember spitting out something hard and realizing it wasn't a date pit. It was your tooth. You try not to think about it. Some mornings you overhear temple scribes arguing about new ingredients. Crushed emeralds, charred goosebone, even, believe it or not, a paste made with crocodile dung. Historians still argue whether this was medicinal or symbolic. You personally hope it was a prank. Outside the village, kids are playing, their laughter rising with the dust. You wonder how many of them will have teeth by 40. Not many, judging by the elders who hum through toothless grins. The oldest woman in the village once told you that teeth are for the living. You didn't ask what that meant. You spit again, carefully avoiding the household cat who eyes your paste with suspicion. It lands with a splat near the doorstep, drying instantly in the heat. Some of it splashes your sandal. You sigh. Your feet smell like burnt hoof now. You take a sip from a nearby bowl of rinse water, this one infused with chamomile and honey. It's a weak brew today, more like floral soup than a rinse, but it takes the edge off. You swish, swish, spit. You can't tell if your teeth are clean or just numbed into submission. Still, there's a strange satisfaction to it, something grounding, a reminder that even without plastic or paste or peppermint, humans have always fought the same tiny battle against decay, against time, against the quiet rot. And for a few more hours at least, you've won. The morning sun climbs higher, and with it comes the real reason your teeth are falling apart: breakfast. You return to the communal oven, where a neighbor is already peeling flat loaves off the hot stones. The bread is warm golden and smells incredible, yeasty and slightly sweet. You accept your piece with thanks, tearing off a chunk. It's tough, dense, and speckled with dark flecks from the grinding stones. You know what's in those flecks. Grit, sand, microscopic shards of rock. You chew anyway. Crunch, grit, crunch, grit. And just like that, all your hard work with the chew stick and burnt hoof paste is being undone by your own food. Because here's the thing, the Egyptians are brilliant at many things. Math, astronomy, irrigation, but their flour, it's dental sandpaper. The grinding tools are to blame. Those beautiful basalt querns used by bakers to mill emmer wheat might look elegant, but they're brutal. Every time someone crushes grain into flour, they also crush the surface of the stone itself. Over time, tiny particles of quartz and grit mix in. You chew them along with every bite, and they grind down your enamel like desert wind carving sandstone. You pause mid-bite and press your tongue to your molars. Smooth. No. Worn down like river rocks. Absolutely. Historians still argue whether Egyptians knew their bread was destroying their teeth. Some say it was a tragic byproduct of technology. Others believe it was intentional, a way to toughen the body. You hope that theory is wrong because your jaw is already sore. The food isn't bad. It's nourishing, filling, familiar. There's a smear of lentil paste on the side, and a few dried dates for sweetness. But each bite is like chewing a mouthful of sand wrapped in carbs. You watch your friend across the way. He's got a slight limp, and half his teeth are gone. You know this because he smiles wide when someone tells a joke. His gums are pale and receded. His breath could drop a goat. Still he chews like it's nothing, and maybe that's the thing. You adapt. The body doesn't complain until something breaks. A cracked molar, an infected root, a sudden blinding ache behind your eye that makes you curse Ra himself. But until then, you chew, you swallow, you go back for seconds. Today, a traveling merchant stops by with a rare treat: barley beer and fig cakes. You trade a strip of linen and get a warm handful of the sticky sweets. The figs are rich and dark, their seeds popping between your teeth like tiny stones. You smile through the pain. Sweetness is worth it. Later, as you help turn the grindstone in the bakery, you feel the heat rise in your face. The stone is heavier than it looks, and the rhythm of crushing grain is hypnotic. You hear it, grain against stone, stone against stone. And beneath that, a quiet whisper of your future dental bill in pain and pulp. You know this sound. You've heard it before, in your own mouth. By midday, your tongue is sore from flicking at a sharp edge on your back tooth. Something feels off. It might be cracked. You hope not. You'll try to ignore it. Maybe it'll go away. It won't. But denial is a powerful ancient medicine. You rinse again with a bit of herbal water, then chew on a sprig of mint if you're lucky enough to find one. It doesn't last. By the time the sun starts to dip, your breath smells like crushed rocks and warm dates. Still you smile, because that's what humans do. Even when they're slowly grinding their own teeth into dust, they smile, they laugh, and they eat the bread anyway. And you'll do it all again tomorrow. By late afternoon, the ache in your back tooth has grown more persistent. It's not sharp, not yet, but there's a dull throb every time you clench your jaw. You try not to think about it, but of course once you notice something in your mouth, it's all you can think about. It's like a splinter in your tongue's imagination. You sit under the shade of a sycamore pretending to nap while your jaw pulses like a slow drumbeat. Eventually you give in. You need help, which in ancient Egypt means a sabilanw, a doctor, or more accurately, a healer who sometimes doubles as a dentist, priest, and philosopher, depending on the day. You trudge toward the edge of the village where the healer's home sits slightly apart. The scent of burning herbs hits you before you even reach the doorway. Inside, it's dark and humid, the air thick with incense smoke and the faint tang of copper. The healer doesn't look up at first. He's stirring something in a stone bowl, but eventually waves you over without speaking. You sit on a stool. He lifts your chin and peers into your mouth, then mutters something unintelligible while poking your sore molar with what looks like a tiny bronze fishhook. You try not to scream. The pain shoots through your jaw and down your spine. Apparently that means it's infected. He sets down the hook and reaches for something wrapped in linen. You spot tools, sharp ones. A chisel, a dull knife, a wooden wedge. You start sweating. He doesn't explain what he's doing. That's not how this works. You're expected to sit still and be brave, or at least not faint into the fire pit. He dips a reed into a paste possibly made of crushed garlic honey and juniper, and smears it onto the sore area. It burns like a torch. You make a sound somewhere between a whimper and a curse, and he chuckles. Historians still argue whether these ancient dental remedies were meant to heal or merely mask the symptoms. Some even suggest the goal was ritual purification, not medical relief. Right now, you don't care. You just want the pain to stop. Next, he picks up a reed-wrapped cone filled with smoldering herbs and blows the smoke gently into your open mouth. You gag. It's thick and spicy and tastes like burnt tree bark. He mumbles a few words to a god whose name you don't catch, and then presses his thumb against your jaw with surprising tenderness. Tomorrow, he says finally. If it's still bad, we pull it. You nod, trying not to cry. As you leave, the heat of the sun feels cool compared to the fire in your mouth. You spit once, see a streak of red, and keep walking. You remember a story someone once told you of an old priest who had all his teeth removed with a copper chisel and lived to 80. You wonder if that's a blessing or a threat. The idea of extraction terrifies you. There's no numbing agent, no clean gloves, just hands force and a lot of screaming. You've heard it before, echoing from this very hut. Someone else's agony. You try to convince yourself it won't come to that, but deep down you know better. You pass by a statue of Sekhmet, goddess of healing and wrath. You offer a whispered prayer not because you're devout, but because at this point, you'll try anything, even gods with lion heads. By the time you return home, the pain has faded to a background buzz. You rinse with beard chew on a sliver of willow bark. It's said to help, and lie down, hoping sleep will outpace the infection. You wonder how the nobles dealt with this. Did pharaohs have special priests to chant their pain away? Did they get gold teeth hammered in while the rest of you bled on reed mats? Possibly. Even mummies wrapped in gold and linen have been found with abscessed jaws and splintered molars. Rich or poor, the sand gets everyone in the end. You shift onto your side jaw, sore mouth dry. Tomorrow might bring relief, or it might bring that bronze hook again. Either way, your teeth aren't getting any younger. The next morning, your mouth feels like someone stuffed a hot coal into your cheek overnight. You wake slowly, wincing, barely able to move your jaw without sending shockwaves up your temple. So much for sleep being the cure. You run your tongue along the inside of your gums and feel the swelling tender, tight, and unmistakably infected. You groan. Then you spit. It's tinged pink again. You know what this means? But first you need to get through the morning. The chew stick sits by your mat, freshly stripped and ready. You look at it like it betrayed you. All that chewing, and still your teeth have declared mutiny. You pick it up anyway, and start the motions each pass along your molars, a low-grade form of penance. Outside the village is buzzing. There's a procession coming through, a minor noble, and his entourage wrapped in linen and perfume parading through the street on their way to a small temple just upriver. Children run ahead of the group giggling, and vendors rush to line the path with woven mats and offerings. You stand off to the side, chew stick in one hand, when you catch a glimpse of something truly strange. The noble's smile. It's gold. Literally. His front teeth glint in the sunlight, capped in something shiny and unnatural. You blink. You've heard rumors, of course, but seeing it up close. That's new. Gold dental work. Not fillings exactly. More like coverings, ornamentation, possibly even a status symbol. Historians still debate whether these were applied before death or after, during the mummification process, But in that moment, watching the noble's smug, gilded grin flash under his headdress, you wonder if it even matters. Alive or dead, those teeth say the same thing. I'm important. I don't chew barley bread anymore. It's almost enough to distract you from your own pain. Almost. You trail behind the crowd, drawn to the procession, half out of curiosity, and half because you're stalling your inevitable return to the healer's hut. The temple walls ahead shimmer white under the sun. Relief carvings show gods with animal heads. Anubis, Thoth, Hathor, all watching over scenes of harvest and healing. One panel even shows a priest administering something to a kneeling figure's mouth. You squint. Is that dental care? Or just a symbolic act? Nobody agrees. You push into the temple's courtyard and find yourself near the incense stands. A priest nearby waves a censer, filling the air with frankincense and myrrh. You inhale slowly. The scent is oddly soothing, spicy, woody, almost medicinal. You wonder if anyone's ever tried rinsing with this. Someone probably has. The Egyptians are nothing if not inventive with their mouths. You take a moment to sit near the fountain, watching the filtered water ripple under lotus blossoms. A young acolyte kneels nearby, crushing something in a small alabaster bowl, cloves and cinnamon bark by the smell. Mouth fresheners, maybe. You remember hearing that Pharaoh's staff sometimes chewed on cardamom to keep their breath sweet during ceremonies. Not that it helped their teeth. Most royal mummies show severe decay beneath the pomp. You close your eyes and picture it. Golden caps on top, blackened roots beneath. Fancy wrapping on a rotting core. It's comforting in a bleak sort of way. No one escapes, not even kings. As the sun passes overhead, the pain in your jaw returns with a vengeance. You know you can't avoid it much longer. One last stop, though, just one. You duck into the scribe's workshop near the edge of the market. He's known to keep imported herbs and occasionally trades in exotic powders from Thebes, or even farther south. You explain your situation, tugging your cheek to show the swelling. He nods knowingly and hands you a small pouch. It's a blend of dried mint myrrh and a trace amount of natron soaked in wine. It's not a cure, it's a distraction. You chew the mixture slowly. The taste is intense, earthy, and sour, but it does something. Not enough, but something. By the time you walk back to the healer's hut, the sun is low in the sky, and your resolve is firm. You won't run. You won't beg. You'll open your mouth and let him do what needs doing. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll keep most of your teeth. Maybe. You return to the healer's hut just as the first shadows of evening start to stretch across the village paths. There's a faint breeze now, but it does nothing for the nervous sweat along your spine. You duck under the reed curtain without knocking. No one knocks here, and find the room darker than yesterday. A single oil lamp flickers near the floor, throwing shadows like dancing spirits across the walls. He's ready for you. No words. Just a glance, a nod, and a gesture toward the stool. You sit jaw tight, fingers white-knuckled on your knees. He leans in, inspects the swelling again. Then he grunts confirmation of what you already knew. It's time. The molar has to go. You expected tools? What you didn't expect was honey. He reaches for a small jar and smears a thick dollop along your gums. It's sticky, fragrant, soothing in a way that feels almost motherly. Honey isn't just for sweetness here. It's antiseptic, protective, revered. The ancient Egyptians use it in wounds, burns, even embalming. Right now it's coating your inflamed gum like a golden bandage. Then comes the wine, a deep red, strong-smelling brew poured into a clay cup. You're not told to sip, you're told to swish. You obey, letting the bitter liquid burn its way between your teeth. It numbs a little, mostly it distracts. He waits until you spit before picking up the tool. A slim, curved piece of copper, sharpened and worn with use. You think it might have once been part of something else? A sickle, maybe. Recycled pain. He doesn't count. He doesn't warn. He just acts, and oh, it hurts. There's a moment where time doesn't exist. Just pressure twisting, tearing a sickening pop, and your vision goes white. You taste blood and metal and something ancient and primal. You don't scream, not out loud, but your body shakes like it wants to. Then, silence. He holds up the tooth like a prize. It's cracked black near the root, crusted with something that might once have been food. You stare dazed. That was in your head. He packs the socket with a wad of linen soaked in herbs and presses it in firmly. You're not sure which part hurts worse, the empty space or the echo it leaves behind. You slump. The healer grunts again, satisfied. Then he speaks the first words of the evening. Rest. Do not chew. And just like that, he turns back to his incense as if pulling body parts from people's skulls is just part of the job. It is. You leave slowly, hand pressed to your face. The world feels fuzzier, softer, like everything's been cushioned by cotton wool and exhaustion. The stars are already out, bright pinpricks over the Nile. You don't remember the walk home, but you remember the honey. In the morning, you'll rinse with something special. A gift from a neighbor, honey water, mixed with crushed herbs and a drop of lotus oil. It's not just for flavor, it's sacred. Sweet breath pleases the gods, or so the temple singers say. Some even believe that morning breath insults the sun god Ra. You figure he's probably heard worse. You pour a little of the rinse into your mouth. The pain is still there, throbbing gently, but the sweetness offers something else, a kind of peace. You hold it, then let it trickle out slowly into the dust. Tomorrow you'll chew again. Carefully. Maybe just soft bread. Maybe soup. But tonight you're alive. Toothless, wounded, but alive. And in this land of deserts and death masks, that's something to smile about. Even if your smile is one tooth short, the next few days pass in a strange rhythm of pain and recovery. You chew carefully on one side of your mouth only and avoid anything too hard, too hot, or too sharp. Bread is soaked in water. Beans are mashed. Dates are off the menu entirely. But still life moves on. You find yourself back at the granary watching as a young woman pounds emmer wheat with a long wooden pestle. Each thud releases a small cloud of flour and dust that floats lazily into the morning sunbeams. The smell is oddly comforting, warm, nutty, ancient. But all you can think about is how much of that dust is stone. She pours the ground flour into a basket, and you catch a glimpse of tiny glittering particles clinging to the edges. Quartz, feldspar, microscopic teeth killers. And you realize, this isn't just food, it's the slow weapon that's been wearing down your smile since childhood. Historians still argue whether Egyptians knew just how destructive their bread was. Some say it was simply the cost of progress after all these grinding stones allowed you to feed entire communities. But others believe the people knew exactly what they were chewing and just accepted it. After all, what were the alternatives? You watch as the baker mixes the flour with water and a pinch of sourdough starter. Her fingers are quick and practiced. She works the dough until it forms a thick, sticky mass, then slaps it down onto a flat basalt slab near the fire. There's no salt, no oil, just flour and time. As she bakes, you peer down at the grindstone itself, a heavy slanted slab that looks as old as the Nile. You run your fingers over the surface. It's smooth worn and pitted from decades of use. Little flakes of stone cling to the edges. You flick one off and hold it to the light. It glints like a warning. You remember helping with this as a child? You and your brother would take turns pushing the grinding roller back and forth. It was a game at first until the blisters set in. Your mother used to laugh and say, "A little grit in your teeth builds character." You believed her? You bite into a piece of fresh bread later that day. It's hot crisp on the outside, steaming on the inside. And as soon as you chew, you feel it. That telltale crunch. Not from the crust, but from the flour itself. Tiny pebbles dancing between your molars, whispering, "We're back." You force yourself to finish. Waste is frowned upon. And besides, you need the strength. But afterward, you reach for a rinse today. It's beer and salt, a crude concoction that tastes like misery, but at least helps dislodge the stone shrapnel now lodged in your gum line. You spit into the sand and check your reflection in a polished bronze disc. Your mouth looks tired, older. The gap from the missing tooth is visible when you smile. You cover it quickly, and yet you're not alone. You notice others around you missing teeth too. Old men with hollow grins, mothers with worn-down incisors, children with soft crumbling molars barely hanging on. It's a shared legacy passed down like heirloom jewelry made of erosion and pain. Some say it's the price of civilization. The moment you gave up raw fruit for flour, you signed a quiet agreement. You'll live longer, feed more mouths, and in return, your teeth will give out early. It's not glamorous, but it's true. Later that evening, you visit the edge of the fields where the wheat grows tall and gold. You pluck a few grains and roll them between your fingers. They smell of sun and dust and hunger. You imagine grinding them, you imagine chewing them, and you imagine the stone they bring with them, always present, always silent, waiting to turn your mouth into a battleground again. But for now, you tuck the grains into your pouch and walk home, chewing slowly, jaw tight. Tomorrow, maybe soup again. You wake to the sound of someone laughing. Not a child, not a neighbor, but yourself. You've dreamed of biting into a pomegranate so fresh it popped between your teeth like rainwater. No grit, no pain, just sweet juice and whole healthy molars. Then you woke up and remembered your mouth. Still sore, still healing. You drag yourself outside into the early morning haze, rubbing your jaw and hoping for something soft to eat. On the bench near the well, someone's left a mirror, a polished copper sheet slightly dented but just reflective enough. You catch your own face as you pass. Sleepy eyes, sweat-damp hair, and yep, the growing gap in your lower jaw. You sigh, and then you smile. Not because you want to, but because you're testing it. What does it look like? Is it obvious? Can you still pass for healthy, capable, normal? Not quite. Your smile looks crooked now, a little sunken. Not like the paintings in tombs, those perfectly straight wide Egyptian grins captured in gold leaf and eternal ink. Those people never chewed on granite flour. You squint and try again. Better. Maybe historians still argue whether ancient Egyptians cared much about their smiles. There's plenty of evidence for hygiene rituals. Chew sticks, rinses, pastes, but not much about aesthetics. No mention of whitening teeth or braces or beauty standards that hinge on a perfect set of chompers. The priorities were different. Breath that pleased the gods, a clean mouth to speak sacred words, and teeth strong enough to eat until you died or didn't. Still, cosmetics were everywhere. You wore black coal around your eyes, perfumed your underarms, stained your lips with crushed carmine. So why not teeth? Maybe you wonder it was never about appearance. Maybe oral hygiene was spiritual, about keeping the breath clean for prayers, the mouth ready to speak to gods. Or maybe it was just practical. A rotten tooth is pain, and pain is a problem. No deeper meaning required. You lean closer to the mirror. The gap is still there, but so are the rest. Your remaining teeth are stained, a little worn, but they're yours. Survivors. Out in the market, you pass a young woman selling dried herbs, fennel, mint, anise. She offers you a tooth-freshening bundle, a few crushed seeds wrapped in linen. You chew one. The flavor is sharp and earthy, almost sweet. Your breath clears a little, and you imagine it might smell halfway human. Nearby, a priest chants in the temple courtyard. His voice is rich and deep, each syllable emerging from a mouth lined with what? Do priests have perfect teeth? Or do they just chant through the pain? You'll never know. But you can't stop picturing the gods listening, sniffing, judging. Your grandmother once told you that every word spoken before the gods must ride clean breath. That rotten breath dishonors the message. She used to chew on cloves before making offerings. Maybe that's where it started for you. The sense that cleaning your teeth wasn't vanity. It was reverence. As you walk, you pass a painted wall, a funerary mural still bright despite the years. It shows a man in the afterlife seated at a banquet, smiling, surrounded by bread, wine, and flowers. His teeth are immaculate. Symbolic. Certainly. Accurate. Doubtful. But it makes you pause. Because that's the lie you've always known. In eternity, everything is perfect. No cracked molars, no swollen gums. Just endless feasts and gleaming teeth. The truth, though, is here on the street in your mouth, in the powdered pumice that cuts and heals at the same time. You reach into your pouch and pull out a fresh chew stick. You bite the end, roll it between your fingers until the fibers separate, then begin. Scrape, chew, spit, and somehow you feel better. Not clean, not perfect, but cared for. Even in a world where smiles are chipped, breath is fought for daily, and no one has ever heard of dental floss. You're trying, and that counts. The next time your jaw starts to throb, you know it's not the socket, it's the next tooth. A dull ache beneath your second molar, the kind that pulses just enough to remind you, this isn't over. Probably never will be, so you go somewhere different this time. Not the healer, not the priest, not the scribe with his jars of charred goosebone powder. No, this time you go to the temple. It's not just any temple. It's one of the old ones, a step pyramid shrine far enough from the village that you have to walk half the morning to reach it. It's mostly crumbling walls now and half-sunk columns, but there's still an active shrine inside. And the priests there, they treat pain differently, less with blades, more with mystery. You approach with your head bowed. You offer a token, a dried fig, half a strip of linen, and they accept it without speaking. A priestess leads you into the back chamber where incense curls through the dim air like whispered prayers. She motions for you to kneel before a painted panel. You do. The panel shows something strange. A man, mouth agape with a black snake writhing between his teeth. Another man, possibly a healer or a god, presses a finger to his lips. Below them, a bowl catching spit. You blink. She murmurs something you don't fully understand and presses a clay charm into your palm. It's shaped like a tiny worm. The tooth worm, of course. You've heard the stories. Everyone has For centuries, people believed that when teeth hurt, it was because a worm had burrowed into them, gnawing, twisting, feeding. The worse the pain, the fatter the worm. The cure: smoke, incantations, sometimes oil poured directly into the tooth to drown the creature. Historians still argue whether this belief came from Egypt, Mesopotamia, or somewhere else entirely. But here, in this quiet corner of ancient stone and shadowed corridors, the worm still lives. The priestess takes a small reed cup and fills it with something thick and pungent, possibly cedar oil or maybe a mix of resin and vinegar. She doesn't explain, just hands it to you and gestures for you to hold it in your mouth. You obey. It burns. Not the hot kind of burn, but the deep stinging fire of something caustic. It makes your eyes water and your nose run. You want to spit, but you don't. Not yet. She lights a bundle of herbs and waves it around your head in slow, swirling motions, chanting softly. The words rise and fall like the Nile in flood season, slow, deliberate, strange. You feel ridiculous. And also, strangely calm. When she finally nods, you spit into the clay bowl at your knees. A dark string of oil and saliva slides out thick and clinging. She inspects it solemnly, then points to the small worm-shaped charm in your hand. It's done. You leave with your mouth numb and your mind full of questions. Did it work? Is the worm gone? Was there ever a worm to begin with? Or is the ache just hiding, waiting for the next bit of bread, the next grind of stone between your molars? Either way, you feel different. As you walk back through the market, someone offers you a taste of something new, dried licorice root. You chew it gently. It's sweet, soothing, not powerful but pleasant. Another tool in your endless oral war chest. You pass the healer's hut and nod to him from afar. He nods back but doesn't wave. He knows. You've found alternatives, not replacements. Nothing replaces a pulled tooth, or a worn jaw, or the gnawing certainty that your next dental crisis is already sprouting under your gums. But still, you fought the worm, and in this world, one where no one flosses, where toothbrushes don't exist, and where dentists double as exorcists fighting the worm, is enough. For today, the following week, your mouth finally begins to feel like it belongs to you again. The socket where the molar once lived has healed over with soft, tender gum. The swelling's gone, and for the first time in days, you don't flinch when you bite into warm bread. Of course, you're still chewing on one side, and you're still spitting grit into the sand after every meal, so you take precautions. You switch chew sticks more often now. No more chewing until they fray like old rope. Today's stick is a clean-cut piece of acacia, fresh and fibrous. The scent alone is refreshing, earthy, almost floral. You run it over your teeth, gently tracing every curve, every nook feeling where enamel gives way to dentin. You still wince at your premolars, but it's manageable. You've started experimenting too. A bit of natron added to your rinse water, some anise for flavor. Once you tried mixing a tiny bit of Nile silt into your paste, just to see what it did. Spoiler, it tasted like riverbank and regret. Never again. Still, the creativity matters. Because in ancient Egypt, nothing exists in a vacuum. Everything is ritual, even the act of chewing. This morning, you help your uncle prepare a batch of rinse water made from herbs steeped overnight in sun-warmed pottery. It's a mixture of chamomile mint and a pinch of ground cinnamon. He says it soothes the spirit. You're more interested in how it soothes your gums. You take a sip. It's surprisingly pleasant, slightly bitter but clean. You swish it around, then spit it near the reeds. The cat watches unimpressed. Later that day, you run into a neighbor carrying a small linen pouch, her own oral care kit. She's got licorice root fennel seeds, even a pinch of dried date sugar to sweeten her breath. She offers you one. You chew it and realize it's not just about keeping clean anymore. It's social currency. No one wants to talk to someone who smells like fermenting onions and canal water. You pass a group of workers hauling sacks of barley and hear one of them joke about his cousin's cave mouth. Everyone laughs, then they chew, just like you, and that's when it hits you. This is normal. Constant dental maintenance. Chew, scrub, rinse, repeat. It's as much a part of life as baking bread or hauling water, and nobody escapes it, even the rich. Word spreads through the village that a royal embalmer is passing through. He's been summoned to prepare the body of a noble who died 2 days ago. You're not invited to the ceremony, obviously, but you linger near the temple to watch the procession. The embalmer is draped in pristine linen, his eyes lined with kohl, his fingers stained with resins. He carries a box filled with tools, long slender probes, tiny hooks linen rolls. You wonder if any of them are for the mouth. Later that evening, a friend of a friend tells you that yes, the noble had his mouth attended. They packed it with scented wax and herbs, wrapped the jaws in fine linen. Not just for appearance. For the ka, the life force, the body must be whole. The mouth must be clean even in death. Historians still debate whether this was symbolic or functional. You're starting to think the line between the two doesn't matter here. Everything is both. You look up at the stars that night, reclined on a mat outside your home. Chew stick laid across your chest. Somewhere nearby, someone is pounding wheat again. Somewhere farther, someone else is spitting into a clay bowl hoping to expel their toothworm. And here you are, just one more Egyptian doing your part to stay one chew ahead of decay. You smile into the dark, then rinse one last time before bed. You wake before dawn to the sound of weeping, not grief weeping of reverence. Another neighbor has passed an older woman who lived across the alley. You didn't know her well, but you'd seen her every morning for years chewing her miswak stick before she opened her stall. She'd always smiled even when her teeth had mostly given up. A few remained brown jagged, scattered like worn tombstones. But she never missed a morning scrub. Now she's gone. You follow the slow funeral procession toward the embalmer's tent, not out of duty, but curiosity. You've never been this close before. The tent is quiet, surrounded by baskets of herbs and buckets of natron. Inside, 2 assistants are already at work laying her body on a slanted wooden table. The air smells sharp resin oils and a hint of decay held at bay by ritual. A scribe murmurs, the opening of the mouth ceremony under his breath, as a priest raises a hooked tool shaped like a small hoe. It's made of wood and copper, and it's not for show. You've heard of this. You've felt this. But seeing it now used on a lifeless body stirs something strange in your chest. They gently part her lips, what's left of them, and insert the tool. They don't press hard, just tap, then sweep. Not to clean, but to restore. To give her back the power of speech, the right to speak in the afterlife. The gods must hear her voice clearly. And for that, her mouth must be whole. Historians still debate how literal this was. Was the ceremony symbolic? Or did they really think she'd be chewing lotus leaves in the field of reeds? But as you watch the careful hands clean and pack her mouth with linen soaked in sweet oil, you don't need an answer. You can feel the belief in the room like incense. One of the assistants brings out a small jar of honey mixed with ground herbs. You recognize the scent: frankincense, juniper, maybe mint. They smear it along her gums and between her remaining teeth, with a feather. Not to preserve, to honor. You lean against the tent pole, overwhelmed by how familiar this all feels. You've done it too, every morning, every evening, a ritual to start and end the day. Now you understand it's not just hygiene, it's preparation. Even in death, the mouth matters. Later, you return home and stare into your reflection again. Your mouth still a little crooked, still healing, isn't perfect, but it works. It chews, it speaks, it sings sometimes. You pick up your chew stick, freshly shaved, and begin to brush, slowly, reverently. You chew not just to clean, but to carry on a 1,000-year tradition of being present, alive, worthy of voice. Nearby, a child practices her prayers for a temple festival. She stumbles over a word, giggles, tries again. Her mother hands her a small piece of licorice root to chew while she repeats the verse. You smile, chew stick wagging slightly between your teeth. And when you rinse your mouth with a warm mix of honey water and mint that night, you don't spit right away. You hold it. Let it swirl. Let it matter. Because one day someone else may clean your teeth, speak your name, and open your mouth to the wind. And you'd like it to be ready. It's late summer now, and the Nile is beginning to swell. The village smells of wet earth and new silt, and your jaw miraculously is no longer throbbing. You're even chewing on both sides again, carefully, always carefully. But that ghost of pain still lingers like the echo of a once loud bell, now quiet in your bones. One morning, you're summoned to help with a burial team heading out to the edge of a nearby necropolis. Not because you're a specialist, but because you're strong enough to lift baskets and cautious enough not to step where you shouldn't. You go. The sun is barely over the horizon when your feet hit the limestone dust of the burial ground. Rock shards crunch under your sandals. You pass rows of tomb markers, some elaborate, others no more than carved mud bricks. And then you descend. The tomb is shallow, half exposed from a flood last year. Scribes say it might date back 500 years. A local official probably. One of those minor but important types who counted grain taxes and died with more gold than friends. Your job is to help remove loose stone, sweep away debris, and watch for beetles. But what captures you isn't the gold leaf on his collar or the amulet still tucked into his folded arms. It's his skull, more precisely his jawbone. It's cracked, slightly detached, and half his molars are gone. The ones that remain are worn flat, some with deep abscess holes like tiny caves carved by time. You find yourself kneeling closer, staring not in horror, but recognition. That's your future, you think. Maybe not in a tomb, not wrapped in amulets. But your jaw too will tell its story one day. What you chewed, what you survived, what you lost. One of the priests nearby nudges you. See that? He says, pointing at an odd shape inside the mandible. You squint. It's a sliver of ivory. A tooth insert. Probably ceremonial, maybe even an early form of a denture. The elite sometimes had broken teeth replaced with shaped bits of ivory or bone, held in place with linen ties or resin. They weren't functional, but they looked whole, proper, respectable. Historians still argue whether they were used in life or added after death for appearances. You look down at the cracked jaw and wonder, was it vanity or was it reverence? Later, someone mentions that a jaw like this found with dental repairs could end up in a museum one day. 1,000 years from now, someone might study it, take samples, write long scrolls about nutrition and dental decay rates. They might even admire the care someone took to replace a tooth that no longer served a purpose. You help gently lift the remains into a basket layer by layer. No teeth fall out. He held on to them even in death. That night, you return home and sit in the quiet. You light a small oil lamp and stare into its flame, running your tongue along the inner edge of your gums. What story will your jaw tell? You reach for your chew stick, smooth oiled with a drop of sweet resin, and brush, gently, deliberately, with a new kind of respect. You're not just cleaning, you're preserving, carving a legacy tooth by tooth. And maybe if you do it well enough, no one will have to tuck ivory into your mouth after you're gone. You're deep in a date grove one afternoon, sorting dried fruit for trade when someone jokes that you've been unusually quiet. You shrug. You're chewing carefully but content. There's no pain today, and the soft, sticky sweetness of the dates gives your jaw a kind of satisfaction no barley bread ever could. But chewing slowly has another effect. It gives you time to think, specifically about how much of your life is spent focused on your teeth. You didn't grow up obsessed with them. No one in the village talks about tooth whitening or flossing. But here you are, counting the chew strokes between bites, mentally mapping every tender spot in your mouth, rinsing with beer before meals and honey water, after inspecting your smile in copper mirrors as if it matters. And it does, because in this world your mouth is more than a tool. It's a vessel. You eat with it, speak prayers through it, greet people, plead with priests, kiss loved ones goodbye. It's sacred and fragile. You head toward the well to fill your water jar, and as you pass the scribe's station, you overhear a young student reciting medical texts. One passage makes you stop mid-step. To cleanse the mouth, mix natron with beer and mint swish before dawn, and do not swallow, for it may disturb the stomach gods. You smile. That sounds familiar, but then comes the strange part. He reads another line about charms for toothache, phrases written on papyrus and worn around the neck, invoking the gods to banish the worm of decay. I bind thee, spirit of rot. Depart from the house of the tongue. Historians still argue whether such charms were believed to be effective, or if they were just spiritual comfort during pain that no powder could cure. But in a world where options are few, even belief can be medicinal. Back home, you find yourself digging through old linen scraps and make one of your own, a small square with a hastily drawn eye of Horus and a line from that chant. You hang it beside your sleep mat just in case, because now you're thinking bigger. You remember seeing temple attendants prepare mummies, stuffing scented cloths into the mouth, placing symbolic tools alongside the body, a bronze scraper, a packet of salt, even a chew stick. To go into the afterlife with an unclean mouth, unthinkable. And so that evening you make your own offering. You take a small handful of ground herbs, mix them with natron and honey, and press the mixture into a tiny clay pot. You place it by your doorway under the full moon, not for the gods, not exactly, but for the idea of continuity, of respect, of not letting your teeth disappear quietly into time without a fight. A child passes and asks what it is. You tell her, "It's for the next time I forget how important it is to take care of what's in here." You tap your jaw. She laughs, then pulls out her own chew stick nibbled nearly down to the bark. You offer her a new one. Cut it fresh yourself, and together you chew. The grove rustles behind you. The moon is high. Your mouth is clean. Your breath soft with mint and honey and smoke. You're still here, and your teeth, though fewer than before, are still yours. The season shifts. The Nile recedes. The air grows cooler and you find yourself waking later, chewing slower, moving like a creature built from memory. Your routines, once driven by pain, have become quiet rituals. Even now, as you rub sleep from your eyes and reach for your chew stick, there's no urgency, only habit. You trim the end with a small flint blade, fray the fibers with practiced fingers, and begin the morning brush. Your mouth tastes faintly of ash and river salt. Not unpleasant, not fresh either, just real. You've come to know every sound your mouth makes. The faint crackle of a worn molar when it meets date flesh. The grainy squeak of chew stick bristles against enamel. The pop of a seed, the sigh of a rinse. Tiny sounds that tell the truth long before your words do. Outside, the fields are quiet. A morning fog has rolled in off the Nile, thick and silvery, swallowing the low houses and reed fences. You walk slowly through it, past the same doorways and corners you've passed for years. You know them by heart now, just as you know who will be chewing at this hour. The elder with the twisted ankle sitting cross-legged on his mat nods at you with his half-toothless grin. The basket weaver 2 doors down spits noisily into the dust and shouts something about yesterday's meal trying to fight its way back. A child new to the chewing life tugs at a stick with too much bark still on it and gags a little. You hand her a softer one. She smiles, drooling slightly, and starts again. You've become the one people come to for advice. About pastes, about gums, about which side to chew on when things go wrong. You never meant to be an expert, but here you are. There's peace in it. Today, someone calls you to the far edge of the village. A burial site has been unearthed by last night's rains. Nothing dramatic, just a single grave long forgotten. But what catches your eye is the jawbone resting half exposed in the silt. It's small, maybe a teenager? You crouch down and look closer. Most of the teeth are worn smooth, but two in the back have been packed with something dark. You blink. It's a resin plug, faint traces of cloth still visible. Someone tried to treat the pain. You glance at the others still gathered at a distance and gently cover the skull again with your shawl. You understand. That night, as the fog returns and the lamps flicker low, you chew slowly, then rinse with warm mint and honey water. You swirl it thoughtfully, hold it like a prayer, then spit into the bowl by your bed, letting the last flecks of the day swirl away into darkness. You lie back. Your jaw hums with the soft ache of use, but it's not unpleasant. It's simply a reminder that you're still alive, still fighting decay with twigs and powder and sheer stubbornness. The fire crackles low. The stars blink behind thinning clouds. You close your eyes, teeth still pulsing with the memory of chew sticks and laughter of cracked stones and herbal smoke of gold caps on royal corpses and the child who giggled through her first brush. And as sleep pulls you under, you feel it, not just in your bones, but in your breath. You're clean. You're ready. You're part of a story that stretches beyond pyramids and paint beyond gods and glyphs, written instead in every bite, every scrape, every spit, every smile. And now it's time to rest. The village is still now. Somewhere beyond your shuttered doorway, the Nile sighs in its bed, reeds brushing against each other like soft voices speaking in dreams. The wind has quieted. Even the cats have curled into silence. You lie beneath your linen blanket, the faint scent of myrrh clinging to the air, and breathe slowly through your nose. Your mouth is clean, not minty, not polished, but real. Ground smooth by years of care and food and effort marked by the ordinary magic of human survival. You press your tongue gently to your molars still there. Still strong, you've earned everyone. And though you know tomorrow will bring more chewing, more grit, more wear, you also know this. You'll meet it prepared. You've learned to tend to yourself the old way, not just with tools, but with patience. You've seen what rot looks like. You've pulled pain from your own skull. You've rinsed your mouth with wine honey and the promise of another day. And now, with the world fading soft around you, you rest, knowing that even in the land of heat and sand and stone, care still matters. Clean breath still matters. What you carry in your mouth, your words, your breath, your pain, your history, still matters. The lamp is low. The air is cool. You close your eyes and the last thing you hear is your own slow breath, even and quiet, drifting through a mouth that has been scrubbed, soothed, and sanctified. Good night, Ancient One. You've done enough. End of script. Sweet dreams.